What's up, guys? Today I'm going to talk to you about some of the bags that I have sold and why. And I always love watching these types of videos because it really just gives me a good insight into different types of bags and styles and what works for different people's lifestyles and different phases of their lives and things like that. So I'm going to go through a few of mine. I don't have a ton, although I have sold a bunch, probably like 10 or 15 more contemporary bags. I still have a few contemporary bags like Tory Burch and Kate Spade, and the ones that I've kept, I do love, so that is why I kept them. So I have nothing against contemporary bags or even, high street bags. As a matter of fact, I really love a lot of H&M bags and that sort of thing. So, and I do have some of those. But I will go through some of the more higher end brands today, and maybe you've had some of these. I also want to highlight the fact that some of these were really difficult to let go of because they were so sentimental. And it took me a really long time to get to a point where I could let go of sentimental bags. At the end of the day, though, your closet real estate is limited and you just can't hold on to everything, or at least I can't. And I really just wanted to hold on to bags that were really functional and practical for me on an everyday basis that I knew I was going to grab and actually wear and not just sit on the shelf for years and years and years. It was a long process, but I got there, and hopefully maybe if you're holding on to some bags for only sentimental reasons and having a hard time letting go, I totally get it. But maybe this will help you give a little push to sell them. So let's get started. So the first bag I'm going to talk about was my first luxury handbag, and I do remember it being my birthday gift from my husband at the time. So it was the Louis Vuitton, I can't say this, Montague. I'm going to put it up on the screen, and I have a picture of it too. I only recently sold this, but I got this in 2008. It was a nice bag, and I used it to death. I used it a lot. It was just a shoulder carry, the standard canvas, and there was only one way to wear it, which was the shoulder. I didn't really think at the time about having more options of different ways of wearing things, but it was my everyday bag, so I did get a lot of use out of it. And it was like a pretty spacious medium to large size bag. And I got a lot of wear out of it because it was my only high-end bag, and I really enjoyed it. But fast forward now to 2003, I knew I wasn't gonna wear it anymore. I had been thinking about it for so many years, but it was so sentimental to me because number one, it was my first designer bag, and number two, it was a birthday gift from my husband. So those two things were just enough for me to hold on to it for so many years. And last year was the point in time where I finally came to the decision to let it go. And I ended up consigning it, and actually I made some money on it because the truth is Louis Vuitton does hold its value, and even though it wasn't one of the iconic lines like a Speedy or Neverfull or whatever, it was still kept in really good condition, and so I made a decent amount on it. So that was good, and that was worth it. So the second bag that I sold was the Louis Vuitton Palermo in the size GM. Now this bag was humongous because it was a GM. It didn't faze me at the time because I guess in 2010, big bags were all the rage anyway. But it was your classic Louis Vuitton canvas, but it had this beautiful pleat in the front that I loved. And that was what got me with that bag. And it was so functional because it was ginormous, it held a lot, it had a shoulder strap. It also had like a longer crossbody strap, which was really functional for me. And I used it a lot. So I did get good use out of it during that time for a long time. And it had a zip up. Eventually I stopped wearing it because it just became way too big for my lifestyle, so I just never used it anymore. But then I repurposed it and used it as an overnight bag, and that was super functional. So I've always wanted a Louis Vuitton keep-all bag, but I know that it's so heavy and cumbersome and just not practical to carry around. So I thought I would use this as a overnight bag, and it was actually a super, super bag for that. So I did use it even longer, and it was very, very functional for me, and I loved it. But at the same time, I didn't really feel like I needed a fancy luggage piece, even though it wasn't formally luggage. I was just using it as a luggage piece, and I just prefer to use a much lower maintenance, cheaper travel bag. And I don't know, I didn't think that I needed to have it in my collection, and if I wanted to make room for things that I actually loved, then this one needed to go. And again, it was still very sentimental to me because it was a gift from my husband as a Christmas gift, and I really loved it, and I have a lot of memories with it, but it just wasn't a must-have. And even though it was very functional for me as a luggage piece, having a fancy luggage piece was not something that I really wanted to have or needed to have. So I also made the hard decision at the same time as the no idea how to say that. I sold that at the same time. Actually, all these bags, I think all these bags I sold at the same time, and they all went to consignment. And on this bag, I made a little bit of money on top of that too, because back in 2010, these bags were just priced substantially less than what they are today. And even on the pre-loved market, when I was looking on eBay to see how much the same bags were selling for, they were selling for a decent amount of money, and mine was still in very good condition, even though it was pretty frequently used. And I made some money on it, so can't complain there. The third bag that I sold was the famous Louis Vuitton toiletry pouch in the size 26. Now, I loved that bag because I didn't use it as a toiletry pouch. I would never dream of using it as a toiletry pouch because it would just get disgusting. But I used it as a clutch, and I know some people love that idea and some people hate it. I loved it, obviously, and that's how I used it. But I only used it as a clutch a handful of times. And for the number of times that I wore it out, it was just sitting there for so many years. And I got it in 2014, maybe 15. And so I know that they discontinued that particular style. Maybe it was last year in 2022, but I knew they were going for a premium, so I jumped on it, and I was like, I never use this pouch. I never use it as a clutch. I've only used it less than a handful of times. It wasn't worth just holding on to. So I did sell it, and I think I doubled my money on that. So that was a really good sell. So if you have a toiletry pouch that you're just sitting on that is in really good condition and you're hemming and hawing about it, just go for it and sell it, because it's so much more useful to have money in your pocket than just sitting on your shelf collecting dust. So that's my advice. So the next bag that I sold was a Saint Laurent Kate reversible bag. It was a leather and suede bag, and I'll throw a picture up there. And I got this on Matches Fashion, and I loved it online. I was obsessing over it because you know how I love functionality, and this one was reversible, and I've never seen a bag like that before. It was a beautiful camel suede on one side, and it was a beautiful smooth brown leather on the other side. Both sides had the metal standard YSL logo on it, and you literally just flip it inside out, and it had a magnetic flap with a chain crossbody that you could, I believe, double up or do crossbody. So it was just the most, in theory, the most functional bag ever. And I was just like, this is it. And I've always looked at Saint Laurent bags, but I just never pulled the trigger, and I always would just, there was just always something stopping me for some reason. Anyway, this, because it seems so multifunctional, I thought this was it. And so I ordered it, it came, and I opened it, and I was like, ugh. I just loved the suede. I loved the leather. I loved everything in theory, but it had no shape. Because it was reversible, it was so floppy that you couldn't line up, because there was only 2 hidden magnets in between the fabric, and it was really hard to line up the flap to the body of the bag to close it, because it was so floppy. It just wouldn't keep its shape. And so what do? I double down and I get a Samorga insert, and I got the one that was 2 millimeters thick so that it would hold its shape. And when I wore it, I thought it would just be a lot more structured. It did help, but it still wasn't great. And it still didn't, because there were just magnetic circles that were one on each side of the flap that connected to the body of the bag that was supposed to close the bag. And it just never really lined up correctly, so it didn't close correctly. It was annoying, the fact that I had to spend more money on it to make it work, but it didn't really fix the problem 100%, was really a sign telling me this is not it. And I was hoping that it was gonna work. I was praying that it was gonna work because I wanted to love this bag, but it just didn't work. And by the time I had figured out that it didn't work, the return window had expired. So I was stuck with it. And if there's one thing I hate doing, is I hate selling bags. Now, this was a bag that I had bought a couple of years back, so it's not something that I sold recently, but I sold pre-pandemic. And actually, I didn't sell it. I ended up giving it to my sister because I just didn't want to deal with the sale process, and I gifted it to her as a birthday gift. And I just did, some of my friends were like, why don't you just keep it, because you never know. And I'm just like, because I know I'm not going to love it. I know I'm not going to wear it. In fact, it annoyed me so much that I kind of hated it and resented it because I had waited too long to return it, that I missed the return window. So I was just like, I want it out of my life and I want to get rid of it, and I don't want to deal with the whole sale process, because that to me is very, I don't know, I guess at the time I didn't really think about consigning it, but I knew I was going to lose a ton of money consigning it anyway. I was like, let me give it to my sister as a gift and she can enjoy it. So as long as I know she enjoys it, then that was enough for me. So that's what I ended up doing with it. But that taught me a big lesson, because I mean, I can get into it in a different video, but Saint Laurent is a brand that I'm always looking at, but there's always something stopping me. And now I know I'll never buy a Saint Laurent bag because I just haven't had great experiences with it. Which brings me to the next point. The next item that I sold, also Saint Laurent, is this little card holder. And when I saw it online, it was gold colored, and I love gold. When it arrived, it was more of a bronze, and it was kind of dull. I just didn't love the shade of gold that it was in. It was quite dark compared to what I thought it looked like online, and so it just didn't really, I didn't really love it the way I thought I was going to love it, because the color was just off when it came in real life. So anyway, I was like, okay, well, it's still a nice card holder and I'll just hold on to it. And I used it for a little bit and I put my cards in it, but the pockets are so stiff and so tight that it was really annoying to get my cards in and out. I don't know, it just, if it's that hard to take your cards in and out of a little card holder, then it's not functional for me. And coupled with the fact that I wasn't in love with the color and I was a little disappointed when it came, I was like, I can't. So again, like, I don't like accumulating too many different, especially SLGs or bags. I just don't like to have them just to have them. I want to get rid of them if I don't love them. So I decided to sell that, but I did sell it through consignment at the same time with the other Louis Vuitton items. I mean, I lost money on it. I didn't lose a ton, but it was another lesson learned. I'm staying away from Saint Laurent. It just doesn't work for me. I think I love the designs online. I love looking at them. I love seeing them on other people. But for me, I feel like Saint Laurent is just a brand that won't work for me. And another bag that I am in the process of thinking about selling is actually my first designer bag, and it's a Prada nylon crossbody bag, which I don't have with me now. It was a bag that I loved and used and abused, and it's still in great condition. If I sold it, I would probably put it on eBay or something, or maybe go through consignment again. But that is a bag that I'm thinking about selling because I just don't use it anymore, and I got a lot of joy and functionality out of it over the years. And seeing that nylon is back at Prada, it just seems like a good time to let go of it and sell it. So that might be next on the chopping block. Editing note here, I totally forgot I had the LV messenger bag at one point that I bought on Fashion File. I ended up selling it a year later because it was not user friendly. I'm glad that I got to a point where I can actually let go of sentimental things, and I've sort of done a clean out of things that I know I don't love or use. So I hate selling bags. I really hate selling anything because it's such a pain in the ass. It's a real process, and it can be really frustrating, and there's a lot of anxiety and paranoia involved. God forbid your package gets lost in the mail, or you're selling it to a scammer or something, and it just really is kind of an uneasy process that I don't want to deal with. So that is also why I'm so careful about being very considered about when I buy something. I really want to make sure that this is like a lifer. Anyway, that's all I have for now. If you like this video, then please consider binge watching some of my other videos in my playlist. And if you have any suggestions for other videos in the future, then please let me know. And I'll see you next time. Bye.